Each photos is created in a lab and designated as a particular caste in the setting of a dystopian city called New London, which is located in a world where humanity has evolved significantly and drastically. Human beings no longer reproduce, and each photos is assigned to one of 5 castes: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. The children are all conditioned using electric prods to stick to their designation. They should just give them ALS and Netflix, and they'll stay in their lane. The place is ultra-futuristic. There is no crime or violence. Alphas and Betas are designated the smartest and most privileged, while the lower castes like Deltas and Epsilons are cloned and given undesirable jobs. Once born, the children are all conditioned to stick to their designation. Alphas and Betas are designated the everyone lives a healthy life, and most importantly, people are treated with respect. However, despite these accomplishments, there are still some problems. There is no longer a concept of a family consisting of a father or mother. No one is allowed to marry or be in a monogamous relationship, and having privacy is strictly prohibited. These 3 strange rules were implemented in New London because reproduction is now the responsibility of the state. The entire population of New London has a bionic eye chip called Dendra implanted in their eyes. This chip is supposed to be responsible for maintaining transparency in the city. As a result of the chip, each and every resident of New London can see what other residents are doing, whether they are at work or at the toilet. The only way to go private is by taking your eye chip out, but this is generally considered immoral. Additionally, anyone who experiences even the slightest hint of any negative emotion, such as sadness, fear, at the beginning of the story, we are introduced to one of our protagonists, Londina. New London takes great pride in the fact that it is the only city in the world in which no one is sad. Crown is a Beta Plus resident of New London who works as a microbiologist for the New London government. One day while she is busy at work, she is suddenly summoned to an Alpha Plus Bernard's office. Since one has to obey their seniors, Londina quickly heads there, and on the way we get a glimpse of the beautiful and futuristic city. When she arrives, Bernard warns her that she is breaking rules and being selfish by exclusively sleeping with another Alpha Plus named Henry. When Londina denies this, Bernard tells members of New London think of the Savage Lands as a theme park because it is the location where natural-born humans who refuse to participate in the New London project 200 years ago continue to live people in. The people who live in the Savage Lands engage in romantic relationships, get married, and even have children, despite the fact that they are all extremely impoverished and reside in run-down communities located a great distance from the glitz and glamour of New London. People out here don't take soma. Instead, they focus on surviving, and they enjoy a greater degree of personal liberty as a result. On the other hand, the citizens of New London view the savages as nothing more than a source of entertainment, much like a zoo. They even engage in a variety of derogatory behaviors to amuse their advanced counterparts. While this is going on in New London, Bernard receives a command from the director of New London, Ed, to go and investigate an accident, and when he gets there, he finds a large crowd gathered around a body that appears to have fallen from a high building. The deceased is identified as an Epsilon cleaner, and it is strange to see another Epsilon CJAC 60 grieving for his friend as if he has developed some feelings. However, before anyone says anything, the body disappears. Everyone wants to believe that he just fell from one of the balconies, but Bernard starts to wonder if something more sinister occurred. If he did not fall, could he have jumped, considering that everyone is supposed to be happy all the time? The idea of committing the unthinkable is unthinkable. Following this, he heads to his close friend Wilma Watson, who is also the head of the police department. Wilma Watson is also the head of the police department. The show then cuts to the Savage Lands, where we are introduced to our other protagonist, and Bernard tells her about the deceased Epsilon and how he may have committed the unthinkable, but Watson refutes his claims, claiming that it's impossible. She also asserts that even if an Epsilon starts thinking on their own, the Soma pill will never allow them to become depressed and commit such an act. He lives with his alcoholic but caring mother Linda, who stays at home all day waiting for her estranged husband to return. John always tells her to forget about the past and move on, but she doesn't want to. That night, as the two were sleeping, John woke up when he heard someone outside. He grabbed a weapon and slowed out the door. He was bullied by his boss and other colleagues for being weak. John was bullied by his boss and other colleagues for being weak. As Sheila introduces herself, she reveals that her people are a resistant cult that is adamant on driving about the New World scumbags. Here, we learn that a minority of the Savage Lands have become tired of being treated as animals by the New Londoners, which is why they want to put an end to it all. Since John works for the props department and is responsible for loading the fake guns, Sheila wants him to load the guns with real bullet. Because Bernard is still feeling disoriented and confused as a result of the visions he saw earlier that day, he decides to remove his eye chip for a while in an effort to relax himself. However, as soon as he does so, the director of New London approaches him. Ed calls him into his office, where he informs Bernard that he is unfit to be an Alpha Plus because he is not assertive and demanding enough. Ed also reprimands Bernard for acting privately and suggests that he take a vacation to the Savage Lands to clear his mind. That evening, a slightly upset Bernard runs into Lanina and shares everything that transpired with him that day. He also reveals that he has started experiencing feelings like loneliness, which is why he is after this. They board a tour bus and observe various savage events that are incomprehensible in New London, such as the push and pull at a department store marriage and faith in God. On the other hand, a reluctant John is forced to load the real bullets into the gun out of fear that the cult members will go after his mother. Even his best friend Madison starts ordering him around. A while later, the last show of the day, consciousness, somehow she dragged him to a nearby residence and started crying. And to make matters worse, the cult members arrived outside looking for them. John spotted them and was getting ready to alert the other cult members. But when he saw the innocent couple, he unexpectedly changed his mind and decided to help them. Shortly after, John brought the couple to his house, where his kind mother Linda tried her best to save Bernard. She took the bullet out of his body and was getting ready to suffocate him when John, now that Bernard is starting to feel a little better, he is quick to point the finger of blame at the savages for everything. But Lanina reminds him that they are alive because of the savages. We also learned that there is an electromagnetic barrier that surrounds the Savage Lands, and that if a savage attempts to cross it, they will be electrocuted. In the meantime, we found out that Linda, John's mother, was also a resident of New London, and that she had come to the Savage Lands 3 decades ago with her love interest. However, after she became pregnant, she decided to stay in the Savage Lands for her son because having a child in New London is against the law. Seeing this, John hesitates to go, giving the cult soldiers ample time to take a shot. Fortunately, Linda pushes him over the line, and John gets out of the Savage Lands without being burned. This is possible because both of John's parents are new residents of London. With this, all of them escape the place, while the cruel occult leader Sheila stares at them. Unfortunately, Bernard and Lanina quickly cross the barrier, and when a cult soldier tried following them, it appears that Lanina has started accumulating feelings, which is something that is not possible in New London. On the other hand, John has been kept confined in a room where he keeps screaming about his mother, and Mustafa Mod, the most intelligent person in all of the land, observes him closely and deduces that the savages are extremely weak when it comes to deafness. Bernard becomes completely healed, but Lanina feels strange and is ridden with guilt and sadness. Even the psalm. In spite of this revelation, John chooses not to get the implant, and while Bernard is gone, he sneaks out of the room. He then ventures into the main hall, where everyone is amused to see a savage. They call him names and stare at him until John freaks out and runs away. He then heads into the Epsilon section, where all of the opinionless people are having a conversation. The terrified and bewildered John nods his head in agreement. On the other hand, Bernard is also looking for John, and he makes the decision to stop by Ed's office for a brief conversation. He quickly takes out John's eye chip from earlier and compares them. Lo and behold, the two implants match, revealing that John's estranged father is none other than Ned himself. He quickly heads to his fellow Alpha Plus Henry and reveals this, but the latter doesn't believe it and instead criticizes Bernard for sneaking into the director's office. Elsewhere on the table, he finds Ed's eye chip, which implies that he has gone private since Ed is also an Alpha Exotic. Bernard quickly takes out John's Ed, brings John to an area close to the water where Rocket is ready to whisk him away to his own territory. Ed reveals that there are thousands of other cities like the Savage Lands where people have built civilizations. John is somewhat skeptical because the cult leaders will lynch him to death if they find him again. However, Ed knows that there are thousands of other cities like the Savage Lands because he has ventured to several of them, including the Savage Lands. Hearing this, John realizes that Ed is his own father, who left after conceiving him, and he demands answers from Ed, but Ed doesn't seem to care. As a result, John becomes angry and starts a scuffle, which ends with Ed accidentally falling off the cliff to his death. However, since he had left his eye chip in his office, no one saw the incident. Soon after this, John rushes back to the city and stumbles upon one of Watson's pleasure parties. Bernard obviously doesn't believe it and instead reveals that he was actually John's father. Surprisingly, Mond already knew of this, and she mentions that this is why they need to integrate John into their society as soon as possible because it is the least he deserves. Mond tells Bernard that their director Ed died due to an accidental fall. Bernard obviously doesn't believe it and instead reveals that he was actually John's father. Before leaving, Bernard makes a promise that he will handle the situation effectively. To begin, he takes John to the Children's Learning Center, where a group of children are currently learning how to play a game. Expectedly, John is not interested in the game, but still he sits around as the children don't stare and judge him. After this, Bernard takes him to the home of the pleasure party designer Watson, where he introduces the two, but surprisingly, Watson already knows about the salon. Nina goes to play tennis with her best friend Franny in New London. People play only for fun and not competitiveness or prizes. However, Nina, who has completely changed her behavior, humiliates her friend before walking out of there. She then reaches her room and eats several soma pills to calm herself down. At night, the pleasure party commences and Bernard takes John there. He plans to teach in the ways of interacting with others, but before a desperate Watson observes the commotion and grins, just like he used to when he was in the Fortnite lobby. It seems as though he too wants to dance, to be free, and to punch people in the final scene. When Bernard and Lanine are alone in a room, they talk about how their emotions have been shifting as of late while holding hands and getting physically close to one another. The savage John is having the time of his life as he dances with a number of different individuals. Thank you for watching. Why don't you consider subscribing while you're here? We have the best recaps around and would love to have you part of our community. Thank you and see you in the next one.